Good morning, children. Welcome back to online class. In our previous class, I asked you to memorize the 6th unit poem. Hope you have memorized and write in your rough note. Okay, so today I am giving you the study portion for today's class. You have to learn the paragraph of that poem. Unit 6 poem paragraph. Okay, so learn it well. So today in our class, we are going to start the 7th unit prose. Okay, we have completed 7th unit poem. It's not a memory poem, you know that. So we are moving to 7th unit prose. Okay, so just we can see that title, The Dying Detective. Interesting title, is it? Do you like detective stories? I hope you like. Okay, so here this lesson we are going to learn a detective fiction. Okay, we can first read one or two lines about the author. Okay, The Dying Detective by Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle. Okay, so we can see something about the author. Okay, he was born in the year 1859 and died in the year 1930. Okay, he was born in the year 1859 and died in the year 1930. Arthur Conan Doyle. Okay, his full name Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle. Okay, so he was famous for his detective fiction featuring the character Sherlock Holmes. Have you heard about Sherlock Holmes? He's a famous detective. Okay, so here in this story also he had written about this famous detective Sherlock Holmes. Okay, he was famous for the detective fiction featuring the character Sherlock Holmes. I already told you Sherlock Holmes is a famous detective. Doyle wrote 46 stories featuring the character Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so here this story, our story, The Dying Detective, we are going to learn about this Sherlock Holmes, again a detective story. Here the narrator of the story is Dr. Watson. He is originally a physician. Okay, he is a doctor. Okay, here the narrator of this story, The Dying Detective, is Dr. Watson. He is originally a physician. Shall we move to the story? Okay, so here the main characters, let me introduce you one or two characters. When we are reading the story, I will explain about the remaining characters. Sherlock Holmes. Okay, The Dying Detective. Here the dying detective is Sherlock Holmes. Okay, and also the story is narrated by Dr. Watson. He's a doctor, he's a physician. Okay, then Mrs. Hudson. Mrs. Hudson is the landlady of Sherlock Holmes. In the Mrs. Hudson's home only, he is staying, Sherlock Holmes. She's the landlady. Understand all the character? Sherlock Holmes is a detective. Dr. Watson. Then Mrs. Hudson. She is a landlady. Understand all the characters? Keep these three characters in your mind before getting into the story. Okay, it's an interesting story. At the end of the story, I will ask you certain questions. You have to answer me. Okay, so like a detective, you too find out the reason, what are the things happening. Listen carefully and you have to answer for my questions. Okay, shall we enter into our lesson? Here, an introduction is given there for this lesson. We can read it that. The detective Sherlock Holmes was seriously ill. He was not just ill, he was seriously ill. Who was seriously ill? Sherlock Holmes. Keep in mind, ma'am. He wanted to meet his assistant Watson. Then who is this Watson? Dr. Watson, assistant of Sherlock Holmes. Who is seriously ill? This Sherlock Holmes. And he wanted to meet his assistant, Dr. Watson. Okay. Watson he asked his landlady to get him. So, Sherlock Holmes asked Mrs. Hudson to go and get him, okay, inform him about my illness and ask him to come and meet me. Do you get it? You get a connection between these three characters. Sherlock Holmes was seriously ill and this Dr. Watson was the assistant of Sherlock Holmes and Mrs. Hudson, landlady. Okay, Sherlock Holmes asked Mrs. Hudson to inform about his illness to Dr. Watson and ask him to come and meet him. Get it? Then Watson was surprised to see the condition of his master. So, this Mrs. Hudson informed about the illness of this Sherlock Holmes to Watson. So, Watson reached there and he was very much surprised to see the condition of this Sherlock Holmes because he was seriously ill. Was Watson able to save his master? Okay, that's a question, okay, in the introduction part. Was Watson able to save his master? Because Watson is a doctor, okay. Whether he was able to save his master, read on to know more about the underlying story behind Holmes' sickness. Okay, so the other is raising a question to you. Was this Watson was able to save Sherlock Holmes? Or you have to read and find out what is the real reason behind the sickness of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, there is a mystery, is it? So, we can read this story and find out what's the real mystery behind the sickness of Sherlock Holmes. Understand now the situation? Okay, Sherlock Holmes was seriously ill and he asked Mrs. Hudson to go and find out Watson, and Watson reached there and he was surprised to see the condition of Sherlock Holmes, whether he was able to save him from that illness, and read what is the real reason behind the sickness of Sherlock Holmes. This is what we are going to read in this story. Okay, now we can read. Mrs. Hudson, the landlady of Sherlock Holmes, came to meet me. Why it said that came to meet me? Who is this me here? Watson. Why? Watson is the narrator of the story. So, who is narrating this story? Watson. So, he is telling Mrs. Hudson came to meet me. This me is this Watson, Dr. Watson, and said, Mr. Holmes is dying. What was the information given by this Hudson to Watson? Okay, Mrs. Hudson said Sherlock Holmes is dying because he was seriously ill. So she is telling Sherlock Holmes is dying. Mr. Holmes is dying, Mr. Watson. For 3 days he has been singing and I doubt if he will last another day. For 3 days continuously he was seriously ill and I am afraid that he will not be alive for one more day. Okay, he is going to die. That is the condition. He would not let me get a doctor. From the first day itself, I am asking, okay, I'll bring a doctor, okay, to cure your sickness. But this Sherlock Holmes is not allowing me for doing that. I told him I could not stand it anymore and I would get a doctor. So, continuous. This is the 3rd day and I said to Sherlock Holmes, hereafter I can't stand seeing your condition. I am going anyway, I am going to get a doctor. Okay. So, when she said very strictly what Holmes said, he replied, let it be Watson then. If you are very particular in calling a doctor, call Mr. Watson. Okay, Mr. Watson is a doctor as well as he is the assistant of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so Sherlock Holmes said to Mrs. Hudson, if you are very much particular in calling a doctor, you can call Dr. Watson. Okay, so he gave the permission to call Dr. Watson. Okay, after 3 days continuously he was very ill. Okay, I was horrified, for I had not heard about his illness before. Okay, such an illness I had never heard. So this doctor was very much afraid. Mr. Watson was very much afraid by hearing his illness. I rushed for my hat and coat. Okay, so from Watson's home, he is now moving towards Mrs. Along with Mrs. Hudson, he was coming to meet Sherlock Holmes. So he was wearing his hat and his coat, everything, and he was getting ready. As we drove back, I asked her about the details. So while they are driving towards Mr. Holmes, Watson was asking all the details to Mrs. Hudson. What really happened? What was his illness? Everything he was asking to Mrs. Hudson, and whatever she knew, Mrs. Hudson, whatever she knew, everything she is telling to Mr. Watson. There is little I can tell you, sir. I don't know much about that. Okay, only a little I know. Whatever I knew, everything I will inform you. There is little I can tell you, sir. He has been working on a case down at Rotherhithe, near the river, and has brought this illness back with him. Okay, he was working on a case. Why? He was a detective. So he was working on a case, and where he was working? Down at Rotherhithe, near the river. That area, he was working for a case. When he come back from that place, he came with this disease. Okay, that's what I knew about that. He took to bed on Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday afternoon, he took to bed on Wednesday afternoon and had never moved since. From Wednesday, he was on his bed. From Wednesday, he did not move anywhere. He was not able to move anywhere. For 3 days, neither food nor drink had passed his lips. He did not eat anything or drink anything for the past 3 days. Okay. Why did you not call a doctor? I asked. You can call a doctor. His condition was seriously, okay, he was in a bad condition. Why can't you call a doctor? He would not have it, sir. I didn't dare to disobey him. He did not allow me to call a doctor. I'm afraid to disobey his order. So only I did not call a doctor. Then, he was indeed a sad sight. In the dim light of a foggy November day, the sick room was a gloomy spot, but it was a gaunt face staring from the bed that brought chill to my heart. So now, Mr. Watson reached Mrs. Hudson home, and now he was entering the room of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, it was a sad sight. Okay, he was going to die. Okay, his eyes had the brightness of fever. The eyes, so he was describing the condition of Sherlock Holmes. His eyes had the brightness of fever. His cheeks were flushed. You know, if someone had fever, their condition will be in the eyes. We can see the fever, and cheeks, we can understand that. So it is mentioned like that. His cheeks were flushed and his hand twitched all the time. He lay listless. Okay, so he was restless. He was not able to lie on the bed too. Okay, or he was not able to do anything. He did not eat anything for the past 3 days. Even he did not drink anything. So you can imagine the condition, how seriously ill Sherlock Holmes is. Okay, though we can. My dear fellow, I cried approaching him. Okay, so when Mr. Watson saw the condition of Sherlock Holmes, he was surprised, and also he was not able to tolerate his condition. So he was crying, see, my dear fellow, like that. He would run towards him. I cried approaching him. Stand back, stand right back, he cried. Is this he? Sherlock Holmes. Okay, don't come near to me. You stand back there. But why? I want to help you. Okay? But why should I stand back? I am a doctor. I want to come near to you. Okay? So I can't stand here. Certainly, Watson, but it is for your own sake. Okay? You should not come near to me, because for you only, for your sake I am telling you, you stand back. Okay. For my sake, I was surprised. Why you are telling it was just more for my sake? I know that what's the matter with me. It is a disease from Sumatra. It is a deadly and contagious. Okay, why he said it's for his sake? Because it's a contagious disease. It will spread. Those who come or touch him, near to him, the disease will spread. Okay, so because of that only, Sherlock Holmes said you should not come near to me because it's a contagious disease. Watson, that's it, by touch. Okay, even by touch, the disease may spread. So you should not come near to me. You have to stand back. Good heavens, Holmes, do you think this can stop me? I said, advancing towards him. If it spread also, no problem, because you are my master. This will not stop me from approaching near to you or giving medicine to you. Okay, I should do something for you. It can't stop me. Okay, and he moved towards him. If you will stand there, I will talk. If you don't, you must leave the room. So what Sherlock Holmes got angry and he said, if you stop there, I will talk to you. Or else, if you want to approach me, you have to leave the room at once. Okay, if I want to talk to you, you should stand there. Okay, that was the condition laid by Sherlock Holmes. I have always given into Holmes' wishes, but now my feeling as a doctor was aroused. I was at least his master in the sick room. Okay, every time whatever Sherlock Holmes is telling, Watson will obey. Okay, he will not say any word against Sherlock Holmes. Okay, that was the condition of Mr. Watson. Always he will obey whatever Sherlock Holmes is telling because he was his master. Okay, so but here in this point, he's thinking that at least in this sick room, I am a doctor and he is my patient now, so I should not obey him. If I obey him, he will die now. Okay, so at least in this room, I am the master of him because I am a doctor and he is now a patient and I have to cure his disease. Holmes, I said, you are not yourself whether you like it or not. I will examine your symptom and treat you. At least this day, please listen to me. I will examine your condition and I have to see all your symptoms and I have to treat you, or else you will die. Okay, that is the condition. If I am to have a doctor, said he, let me at least have someone in whom I have confidence. So Sherlock Holmes got angry. He's telling, if I really need a doctor, I will call another doctor whom I have confidence. I don't have any confidence in you. Okay, so I will call a good doctor. Okay, like that he said. Then you have none in me. You don't have any confidence in me. I am also a doctor. I can cure your disease. Don't you have any confidence on me? See, in your relationship certainly, but facts are facts. In your relationship, as my friend or as my assistant, I have a lot of confidence on you. But as a doctor, I don't have any confidence in you. Okay, facts are facts. You are a general practitioner, not a specialist of this disease. You are a general doctor. Okay, you can cure a normal disease, everything you can cure. But this is a contagious disease and this is a special kind of disease and you are not a specialist of this disease. So I don't have any confidence. If so, let me bring Sir Jaffer Meek or Penrose Fisher. These are the specialists for this disease. Okay, so if you don't have any confidence, I will call any other specialist for you or any other best man in London. In London, any other specialist, you tell them. Okay, so I will go and bring them for you. How ignorant you are, Watson, he said with groan. Ignorant, you don't know anything, Watson. Okay, like that he is telling. What do you know about Tarpalni fever or Black Formosa plague? Okay, do you know in some names of the disease he is mentioning? Tarpalni fever and Black Formosa plague. Do you know anything about this disease? I have never heard of them. So, this man is telling, Watson is telling, I have never heard about such a disease. Okay. There are many problems of the disease in the East. I have learned that much during my recent researches, and during this course I caught this illness, he said. Okay, there are many problems. There are many problems causing because of this disease, and I have learned that much in the recent researches. I am researching about this disease, and while I am doing that only, I was affected by this disease. I will bring Dr. Ainsley then. I said, going towards the door. So he said, if you are not very much interested in that I am curing your disease, I will call any specialist for you. So he is telling another doctor's name, Dr. Ainsley. He is a specialist. So I said, going towards the door. Never have I had such a shock when dying man bolted the door and locked it. So all of a sudden, Sherlock Holmes ran towards the door and locked the door. Okay? And shouted an uncontrolled way, and in a moment he was back in the bed. Okay, all of a sudden he just moved towards the door only, Watson. Before that, Sherlock Holmes ran towards the door and locked the door, and again he was back on the bed. You won't have the key by force from me, Watson. Be here till 6 o'clock. It was 4 now. Now the time is 4 o'clock. You have to be here in this room till 6 o'clock. Okay. After that only I will give the key. You can open the door. This is madness, Holmes, I said. Are you mad? Whether I have to sit here simply for 2 hours? Only 2 hours, Watson. Then you can get a doctor of my choice. After 2 hours, I will tell a doctor. Okay, about a doctor. You have to call that doctor. You can read some books over there. At 6, we will talk again. Okay, so this 2 hours you can spend very usefully. The books are there. You can read that. And after 2 hours, I will talk to you at 6 o'clock. Unable to settle down to reading, I walked slowly round and round looking at the pictures. He was not patient. How can he sit simply? So what he is doing, he was not able to read the books too. So he just moved around the room, seeing all the pictures, everything. Finally, I came to the mantelpiece, where among other things, I saw a small black and white ivory box with a sliding lid. Okay, so he was watching all the things in the shelf, everything. He was just looking. So he saw an ivory box which is black and white in color with a sliding lid. He can just open it by sliding it. Okay, with a sliding lid. As I held it in my hand to examine it, I heard a dreadful cry. Put it down. Okay, so when he took that ivory box, it looked very beautiful. So he just tried to open that. At that time, he heard a dreadful cry. It was from Sherlock Holmes. What did he say? Put it down at once. Down at once. At once you have to put it down. Watson, I hate to have my things touched. These are all my things. You should not touch any things of mine. See? Sit down, man, and let me have my rest. You should not move here and there, or don't touch any things of mine. You have to sit there simply like that, he shouted, and let me have my rest. Then I sat in silent dejection until the stipulated time had passed. So 2 hours, this Watson sat in a place very silently. He was not able to touch anything. 2 hours. He had to spend this 2 hours till 6 o'clock. He was sitting there simply, silently. He was not able to touch anything. So he sat there simply. Okay. So we will see the remaining part in our next class. Okay. So what are the study portion I had given you? You have to study that. The remaining part of the story we can see in our next class. Thank you, children.